Gichin Funakoshi from Shuri-te to Shotokan. When Gichin Funakoshi arrived in Tokyo in 1922, for some time he lodged in a small room at Meisojuku, a hostel for Okinawan students, and to make ends meet he had to accept occasional work at the hostel, take care of the garden, do the cleaning, and give a hand in the kitchen. His wife did not follow him in Japan, and they never met for 25 years until she had to leave Okinawa and was sent to Japan during the Battle of Okinawa in 1945. Otsuka, a student of Funakoshi sensei that would later found his own style of karate, Wado-ryu, heard that Funakoshi had financial problems at Okinawa and that this is the reason why he never came back. But this is little more than a gossip. Funakoshi, in reality, had already took a journey to Japan, giving a demonstration of his art at Kyoto in 1917, and he had come back to his homeland after a short stay. From now on, he probably conceived the possibility of teaching karate in Japan. When Hirohito visited Okinawa in 1921 and a karate demonstration in his presence was organized, Norikazu Kanna, the captain of the prince's ship and an Okinawan himself, suggested to Funakoshi that such a beautiful art should be introduced in continental Japan. Funakoshi wrote to a friend of his, Saburo Kinjo, and possibly with his help, he was invited to participate in the exhibition. Shortly after the sports exhibition, he was asked to give a demonstration in the Judo Hall at Kodokan, in front of Jigoro Kano and his eldest instructors. To assist him, he took with himself Shingen Gima, a 25-year-old from Okinawa, who lived in Tokyo and had studied karate with famous Kensu Yabu. The two karatekas expected to demonstrate in front of a few instructors, and they were astonished to find an audience of 250 people waiting for their appearance. Funakoshi performed his favorite kata Kushanku, Gima performed Naihanchi, and they showed together application of karate techniques. Gima recalls, "When I arrived at Kodokan with Funakoshi sensei, there weren't only the elder students to greet us, but Director Jigoro Kano himself. There were over 80 members of the Tominshoku section of Kodokan. Therefore, there were over 200 people gathered for the demonstration. Both of us were astonished. It was obvious that we felt nervous because Kodokan was considered to be the temple of Japanese Budo. Kano-sensei was very interested in karate and asked such detailed questions that Funakoshi-sensei sometimes find it difficult to answer. I think that thanks to our demonstration in Kodokan, karate was introduced more easily in the Japanese continent. In other words, the fact that Kano-sensei recognized karate meant that karate was recognized by Japanese Budo world. Later on, Funakoshi-sensei and I demonstrated karate in public at the dojo of Yoguryu and also in the house of the old Okinawan king in Tokyo. I remember visiting also the house of Professor Shinju Tomari from Keio University. He also wanted to teach karate, to learn karate. Amongst those who supported us there were Kano-sensei, Hiromachi Nakayama, a kendo instructor, the Vice Admiral Yakuro Yashiro, and Baron Shinpei, All this happened in the Tokyo area. When Hironobu Otsuka, who was then a jiu-jitsu instructor, went to Meisojuku to learn karate, he found Gichin Funakoshi living in a small dark room near the entrance of the building. Funakoshi had just settled in Japan and he hadn't any students yet. Shortly after, toward July 1922, he started teaching karate to a small group of pupils who have heard other students talk about him. As a dojo, they gave him permission to use the conference room of 20 tatamis at Meisojuku. His rental was increased up to 15 yen for this reason, and so for some time at least, he had to carry out the most different jobs in the building. Shinkenjima was one of the first karatekas at Meisojuku, and remember how everything was simple and poor at the beginning. For example, there were no karate uniforms, and the pupils would simply take off their coats and jackets to begin the training. Yasuhiro Konishi, who began training at Meisojuku in 1923, writes that Funakoshi would teach 2 hours a day, from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. The groups were small, from 3 to 8 students each time. The training only consisted of the simple repetition of katas, Konishi remembers, and seen from the perspective of today, the method was quite simple. The university hostel was destroyed in the earthquake of 1924. And Funakoshi had to look for another headquarters. Hakudo Nakayama, a famous kendo teacher, offered to use his own dojo in the times when he didn't use it. This arrangement lasted until 1931, when, with the expansion of kendo practice, Funakoshi had to move again. He rented a small house in a central district of Tokyo and he taught in the garden, where he had laid down a special wooden pavement. The following year, he rented the ground floor of the house nearby and used it as a dojo. On the 1st of March 1938, the Shotokan dojo was opened, and it became the center of Sensei Funakoshi's teaching until it was destroyed in the bombing of March 1945. This dojo also gave name to the style taught by Funakoshi, by his son Yoshitaka, and by the instructors taught by him until nowadays. As everybody knows, the name Shotokan derives from the pseudonyms nom de plume Shoto, waves of pines, with which Sensei signed the poems that he wrote in his youth, when he had the habit of walking on the hills covered in forests that surrounded the Shuri castle. In the spring 1938, he stuck the sign Shotokan, Shoto's house, on the door of his dojo. It is at this time that he established a system of cues and dans to distinguish the skill level of his students, modeling according to which was already in place for judo. And he also adopted the uniforms and the color belts of judo. Funakoshi, since he was already old, he was 17, he delegated the teaching in each university to the most advanced students, and the teaching in his own dojo to his third-born son, Yoshitaka, who had arrived in Tokyo from Okinawa at the age of 16. Karate scholars think that Gichin Funakoshi has melted 2 different styles of karate, Shorin and Shorei, to create his own system. He himself contributed to spreading this opinion by writing in the introduction of his 3rd book, Karate do Kyohan, The Teki katas, as well as Jite, Hangetsu, Jion, belong to Shorai-ryu, whereas the Heian and Basai, Kwanku, MP, Gankaku, and others are associated with Shorin-ryu. The first official mention of the word Shorin and Shorei can be found in the 10 teachings of Anko Itozu. He states that both styles come from China, have different aspects, both useful to students, and should not be altered or combined. Although Itozu doesn't give any detailed description of the two karate schools, there is a general agreement of scholars in thinking that the word Shorin refers to the style which was practiced in Shuri, and Shorei refers to the style that was practiced in Naha. Shuri-te evolved in modern styles Shorin-ryu in Okinawa, and Naha-te evolved into Goju-ryu. Funakoshi instead applied this classification to the 15 katas that he had imported to Japan from Okinawa. So he moved away from the habit of comparing Shorin-ryu to Shuri-te and Shorei-ryu to Naha-te. Funakoshi had never studied Naha-te, and all the 15 katas that he wrote about and he taught come from Shuri-te, with the only exception of the first techniques of the kata Hangetsu. It is therefore inaccurate to state that he has combined these two karate styles. This is an operation that was actually carried out by Kenwa Mabuni, that inserted all the Shuri-te and Naha-te katas, about 50 in all, in his own style, Shito-ryu.